So let's welcome Benoni to the podium to present to us.
Yeah, I have the arduous task of getting us to gain some understanding on new techniques and innovations for tailings dam construction and operational efficiency. This subject can also be coined in various ways: new techniques or innovations for tailings management and operational efficiency. However we put it, it has to do with something called tailings. I'll just give a little definition of it and then move into the techniques and innovations and the operational efficiency bit. So a tailings is essentially the waste product of our mining activity. You need to pick some rocks or oxide, take them through a mill, grind them, add mercury and all the things that you need to add, and when you are able to take out your gold or whatever, coppers, bauxite and all those alumina and all those stuff, you take them out. Whatever is left, just like the day one presenter said, money is what we needed, and once we had it, we do away with the rest. And that rest in the metals extraction industry as well as the oil industry is called a tail. And this comprises clays, sands, gravels and other things, depending on how your mill processes. Now, on technologies, techniques and innovation, what spares technologies and what spares innovations in our Mother Earth? Essentially, either we have problems or we are just curious. We want to know what is happening. So we want to know what is happening on the moon. We want to know what is happening out there. Are there any other planetary bodies outside of our environment? And most often in the extractive industry, it's problems. So recently, if some of us know, we have a dam failure in Brazil, Samarco. I wouldn't mention the names of the owners and other things, that is not our interest, but just to let you know that there was a problem. And this dam failure, when it occurred, it's a copper mine. When it occurred, 11 people died. According to the news items that we have, 12 people are still missing. Yeah, and then we also had Mount Poly in Canada. We should be expecting that in such advanced countries, these things should not be happening. So what happened in Canada? And a lot of environmental damage was done. Several millions of dollars have been spent just to find out what is happening. Then one more. We have a project called the OK, and OK30 also had a failure. And when it happened, 1,000 kilometer stretch of river was contaminated. 50,000 people have been displaced to date. After all the investigations were done, the owners decided to compensate the affected people with about $400 million. This is a lot of money. So, what can we do in order to avert some of these challenges, in order to ensure that our environment, our motherland and our river bodies are not getting contaminated? So, innovations came up, and that is what we want to share. We will be looking at the industry practices and the innovations that have come up to date. We'll also look at the technology that may be adopted and when and where those technologies should be adopted. Now, typical plant and operations for the specific item which we want to talk about, which is filtered tailings. And then we will just go through our conclusions to see whether we can take something home. Yeah. Now, techniques and innovations. The current practice is that we tend to have very big dams or lagoons, and then we have slurry discharged into them using spigots, pumps, and pipelines and other things. Now, the first time I saw this, I was a fresh graduate from school, and I was doing structures. So my boss was like, "There's a problem at Ghana Manganese. Do you want us to go and have a look?" I said, yeah. I go there and I saw this big lake. I said, structures guy, what am I coming to do here? I didn't know that I'll be presenting on these items a couple of years down the line. All right, so this facilities essentially gets constructed from soils, rocks, and whatever, and then we got the slurry that is coming from the byproduct of our extraction being pumped with a lot of water into that place for storage. Now, as we were doing this, some people were of the view that the water that comes with it, depending on the environment in which you are, whether in an arid area or a wetland and all those stuff, the water becoming excessive. Now the problem that we get is when you have 6 million cubic meters of water sitting in a dam and there's a little breach. Mount Poli was a classic case. It's just about 3 meters of the dam height that was lost in the first place, and everything in the facility went away. And OK30 was also a similar one, a lot of water. So what can we do in order to reduce this water? So they came out with the ideas of some thickening. So at Newmont they have a big tank that they call the thickener. I'm sure it's at Achim and other places as well. So what does it do? It just takes some of the water that is in the tails by extraction, whether by gravity or by vacuum pressure and by pressing plates or whatever mechanism. Now, as time goes on, they are like, well, can we take more water from this tail so that we can minimize the amount of water that sits in our dams? Because the water is the driving force in times of a failure. Now, also there's a lot of water, the thing behaves like porridge. Those of us in Accra, it's like that, what we have after boiling the kenke. We put some sugar and other things in and eat. Yeah, that is how it is. So when there's a breach, it flows just like a river, and everything downstream may be inundated. So they came up with mechanism and introduced technologies and started extracting a lot more water, and then we got what is called a paste. And after some time, others sat down and said, well, we've been doing a lot about what can we do again. So they said, can we reduce the water further? So we got what is called filtered tailings. And this last item will be our major concentration. Now, by reducing the amount of water in our tailings, what do we tend to get? Do we get better geomechanical behavior of the materials, which is a waste? And by better geomechanical behavior, we mean density, permeabilities, and all kinds of things, shear strength, and all that. Now, by when we reduce the water, do we have a better environmental condition? Do we have a risk of failure, or is it reduced, or what? Now, if we finish mining, do we continue to stay at the site now that we have used all the money and the resources have been exhausted? We'll be thinking about going to the moon. So, in order to make sure the communities in which we work are safe, we have to think about closure. And I think legally, every mine is obligated to present a closure plan, so that after all the Asanko resources, Akwesiso, Nkrai, and all are exhausted, we can rehabilitate and give the place back to the original owners. Now, does technology come with cost? Yes. How much? It depends. The environment, is the technology even readily available in the environment that we are trying to put it in? Would it be favorable based on the topography and all those things? Yes or no? As solid content increases, viscosity also increases. And then the strength or the geomechanical behavior of the materials also increase. So is the technology increasing, because to be able to extract a lot of water from your tails, a standard tailings has about 40 to 75% water, depending on what the process is. So you have 25% to 40% being the solids, which is the sands, the clays, and all those particles. So as we take out the water, we will need energy. We will need mechanical processes and all those stuff to run them. When the thing is becoming solid, the more it becomes solid, the higher energy you need to pump, because most often your process plant is down, and then your tailings facilities are further away in the mountainous areas, which present you the valleys and other things for storage. So as the material becomes solid, you need more effort to pump, so the costs tend to go up. And at some point, you get a toothpaste state, which becomes difficult to pump. You can't pump it. So what do we do? So when we came up with things like a filtered cake, which is also more thick than the paste, then it presents another challenge. Now initially you observe from our curve that the cost of preparing a filtered cake, which has less water, in fact from over 75% to about 20%. The cost was astronomical at the beginning of the technology, but with time, additional technology has been observed and innovated, and the cost is reducing. Now, when you have this tailings, as we were saying, as the solid content increases, the water level is dropping. Now, the normal or conventional tailings, as we are pumping up into the dams, because there is a lot of water, the particles tend to segregate depending on the pressure in the system. So once you deposit, like a river, you get the coarser particles staying close, while the finer ones are transported further. And when we are reducing the amount of water, we get the particles staying together so they don't segregate. Does this present any advantage? Yes. On our roadways, when we are constructing, we say we want a material that is well graded. It has fines, medium particles, and coarse. When we do engineer that one, then you can drive your car on. A heavy-duty truck can ride on. So when we reduce the water, we get a paste or a cake which allows us to engineer it, compact it, and all those stuffs. And just like I was trying to explain, on a conventional level, you have it like ketchup, and then as you remove the water, it becomes something like a wet mortar and get into concrete. Now, this is a conventional facility, and in most of our standard practice, because they realize that it's important to take out some of the water, most of our plants are having a unit that allows some amount of water to be drawn. But it is still a lot of water. So here we have a dam. If you see the side, the wall is there, and then we have some drop-off pipes that allow the tailings and the water to come in, the water decants, and then we pick the water and send it back to process. But we still have about 20% to 30% of the water entrained in there, which over time will leach downwards. Then we have typical ones. You see that big pond over there, maybe the Kosovo Dam. And then all the works that are being done just to make sure that leachate into underground systems do not happen. This is a typical paste after some extraction. Now when you have a system like this, the moment your pipe or your pumps fail, you get a clog up, and that is a lot of cost. The whole process will come to a standstill. This is a typical filtered tailings. As we can see here, somebody has even been bold to use this equipment to write an A on it, which means that it's becoming the best practice with time. Now we have less water. You tend to see that the only water you see is down there. Very little water, and the materials are essentially dry. Because the materials have less water, what we do for efficiency is once the material is transported, you send dozers on it and you put a compactor. As she's compacting, the materials keep consolidating and you get more space to fill up. Now, what technology, when and where? I know everybody will be asking, so where can we use this? Because we know the conventional ones. You get it at Newmont, you get it at Sasanko, you get it at Pesos, you get it everywhere. When can we apply this filtered case? Do we have the technology around? Well, when your tailings are amenable to filtration, you should be able to do it. And when we say tailings are amenable to filtration, what do we mean? The geomechanical properties or the soil type behavior or the ore type behavior and the resultant particles that come off the mill process will be assessed. And the assessments will tell us that, okay, this material, when we treat it, we'll be able to extract a lot of water. Or we cannot. For instance, if you have a bauxite product or alumina product, which is normally called a red mud, it contains a lot of clay. And by mechanism, clay is difficult to consolidate. So you may have a lot of issue if your ore is in that state. Now, if your ores are granitois and phyllitic systems, which tend to be more solid, then it is easy to press the water out, suction them out, and get them out into the tails. Now, when you are building a facility and you have scarce resource, for instance, we may get a forest boundary there, and you are limited, you can't go, but you have constructed on all your concession already. So you don't have the construction material, or you will not even be allowed to take material from elsewhere and come and construct. Then this filtered cakes or dry stacks, as others call them, will become an alternative, because the material has no water or essentially very little water, you can place it and construct it without a problem. Now, when you have to control costs, it presents an advantage. And then when you need to compact, so some materials may be difficult to compact, others will not. So depending on your material, you may be able to use it. Now, when seasonal climate or climatic variations are also an issue. So I was mentioning the wet area and the arid area. If you are living in a heavy rainfall area like Cameroon, almost every minute is raining. The Cameroon or Gogo forest, this may not be applicable. In Ghana, it may be. In Mauritania, it will. In another place, it may not. So you need to look at the climatic environment. Now, when you need to recover maximum amount of water, because this is the principle, take out a lot of the water. Now, if you are living in a place like North America, Chile and Co, where water is quite scarce, and you are not allowed to go and take the little that the people are using for domestic purposes, and you had some, would you throw everything away and be expecting that you'll be asked to pick more? No, you will not even be allowed. So as you extract, you recycle majority of it back into your system with the chemicals and everything, minimize costs and get things going. Now, when you want to take advantage of every stage of your mine life to progress your closure, this may be a good alternative. In the sense that you have a dry material, you just place it, compact it, you can put topsoil on it, and then get things going. All right. And when you need maximum environmental protection. Now, is it difficult to assess whether a mineral resource can be amenable or whatever? No. The technology is available. It's so simple. With such simple tools, we're able to tell whether we can suction the water out, we can compress them, we can do all those things. And this is a typical product after suctioning and pressing. A typical, this one they are using plate pressures. So they put in the slurry and then put a hydraulic pressure on it, and the water there's points down there which allows the water to go. Now this is what I talk about. We have optimal performance and the solid contents and production costs. So at some point your production costs will be going up, and then solid contents, which means efficiency, will also be going up. There's a point where this two meets that gives you the best performance, and we do use the tests and other things to come out with such a thing. And if you look at the red curve, it looks like a compaction curve which has the densities and the moisture content, and at that point you get something good. Now what the science has come up with is, as the tailings content, solid content increases, the costs tend to be astronomical. But with the new technologies that are coming, it is possible to go beyond the OMCs and get something good. All right, so with water reduced, what the Minerals Commission and the EPA will say upstream construction is not possible, their perception will begin to shift, because the threat of large volumes of water, it's been dealt away with, and they can say, well, let's do a little upstream construction. All you need is a little bit of rock bands, and then you compact this, which is engineered, and it stays. Leachate is very minimal, and other things. Please go ahead. Now, operational controls. To be able to have this working efficiently, you need to have a plan. So before the new mine comes up, we make a decision whether we want to have a large lagoon or we want to have filtered case. And then start the process of pre-feasibility, feasibility, and detailed design, and get all those things in place. And then the early stages may be troublesome, just like any technology. You need to troubleshoot, get the plants running, change some of the belts and other things, and get them going. Now, you also need to take into consideration the seasonal preferences and differences. So I may decide that, well, because in my area there's a lot of wet seasons, I will have 2 storage facilities. One for my dry tails and one for the wet slurry, so that I can have a year-round production. Because when you have a lot of water, you can't process this material. Now, consistency or ore body characterization, just like we are saying, depending on your ore body, it may be a problem. But if you were able to determine that this is suitable for you, then we need to gain an understanding of how you'll be doing your milling processes and all those bits and the potential variations that will come. Maybe this time we'll mine from this pit, we'll do that, and then when we combine them, we select a technology or a device that will help you operate during all those periods of change. Are there any issues? Yes. You cannot work with filtered cakes or tailings if you don't achieve optimum moistures, because as the material is wet, even the construction equipment will be swallowed. When you dump, it will be swallowed. Then when we compact, what does it do? It will increase our permeability, reduce our permeability. It will give us a higher metric section. Essentially, when you have a higher metric section, what it means is there is low water. So the material has an affinity for water, but because you have engineered it, it will not take in the water. Then we have a reduced risk of liquefaction. The higher the amount of water you have in your finer particles, and the lower the compaction, the higher the risk of liquefaction. Liquefaction essentially means that you have a solid, and when there's enough shaking or instant change in stress condition, the material behaves like water and start moving. Okay. Now, the main issues with this is ability to control the moisture. You do your bit in the plants and everything, extract everything, and then when you are about depositing it, it rains. Before you could compact it, you are in big trouble. So it's a concern, and a good plan will help you mitigate this concern. Then throughput. Well, do we need to get a plant that is as big in order to be able to get the number of ounces we need per day or per month? Can we afford it? Is it practical? Well, what we have observed is that these plants or filtered case can be sized that they can produce up to 3,000 tons per day. Now there are others that can do 100,000 tons per day. And if you are doing 100,000 tons per day in a month, how much are you doing? It's quite big. But it comes with cost implication, and it is project specific. Now, equipment availability, can we have that in Ghana? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe we have to bring it from South Africa, or maybe from Europe. Now, when we have seasonal climate variations, the issues that come up is because it's the material you've deposited and you've compacted, it can erode. And when it's eroding, where will it go? Water bodies and other things. So we put in some bands to hold them up. Then we divert a lot of water so that water doesn't come in. Then we put wet materials in the center, and then during dry seasons, there may be some dust problems. But in our terrain, no dust problem. As we said, maximum water recovery is the goal. So that's the technology. Well, there's a problem that they call the acid drainage, acid rock drainage. And when you have sulfide oxide, after you've deposited everything, water comes in and other things, you leave, and the next morning all the plants downstream are dying. Okay? When this thing is compacted, you keep out air, you keep out water. So sulfides will stay in an inert state and they will not generate acid. There are a couple of places in Ghana that have this sulfide ores, but we are graced not to have that big problem. In other places it is. Now closure opportunities, just like I talked about, because you are progressively engineering your tailings and removing out the excess water, you have less concern when the whistle comes that everybody should stop mining and close and go. You just say thank you, bye bye, I'm done. Whilst others will be struggling to take out the excess water and doing all those things. Okay. All right. Then there's improved public buy-in. Just like I said, if you are going for a permit, you need to go through. I think the first day we were told that sometimes it takes 10 years before you can get a license to actually mine. All those environmental things have to be approved. And then it will improve your permitting process because we see the evidence of you reclaiming as you are going. Okay. A typical plant. So we've got typical conveyor systems and vacuum systems and pressure plates. You feed in your tails through conveyors and pipes and other things, and then you push the tailings together, the water goes down, goes through some pipes and it goes out. And then once the water is extracted, the tailings drop down a chute, goes on another conveyor, and is transported. You may be able to pick your tails from a pit in a dry state with an excavator and a truck, and just go and dump it in your storage area, spread and compact. Yeah, this is a typical one. They are using gantry to do that. You just pick it, send it across, spread and compact. And this is a typical dam, as opposed to what we see in other places. All you see is a bit of a rock ring, and then the dry tails is down. And the under drains have been designed so that any excess water is drawn down. You pick it and send it back to process. All right, this is also another area. In this area, the tails are not compacted. They just spray it over and it becomes like a sand dune. There's no water, so they have no problem. Conclusions. Just like every new technology, what we have presented here should be considered as an alternative and not a panacea for everything associated with mine waste tailings. The viability and advantages that filtered tailings present should be evaluated on project specifics. And then climate and environmental challenges and all those stuff comes into play. You must have a good plan in place before you buy into a technology. This technology that we talk about, filtered tailings, can be used in areas where earthquake is a challenge. 9.2 magnitude, this material can withstand in their compacted state, whilst the big lagoons cannot. Or you need more effort to make them stand. Thank you.